أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه قال علي بن أبي طالب في نهج البلاغة الحمد لله غير مقنوط من رحمتي ولا مقلوع من نعمتي ولا مأيوس من مغفرتي ولا مستنكف عن عبادته الذي لا تبرخ منه رحمة ولا تفقد له نعمة وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Assalamualaikum, my dear brothers and sisters. Eid Mubarak to all of you. I should only say to that part of the room because it's more colorful. Here is not Eid, there is Eid. So honestly, it's like full of colors. This is a bit, I don't know. So I should have worn a blue kanzu. This is white anyway. I just picked whatever was there. So anyway, my wife will get blessing for ironing it. Inshallah, for today's lecture, or tonight's lecture, I want to focus more upon the teachings of Imam alayhi salam. I think often lectures about Eid al-Ghadir focus on his nomination and his status, and we may share lots of stories as to why Imam Ali was great. And I think we all accept that Imam Ali was great. I don't think anybody really disputes that, whether amongst the Shia, amongst the Ahlul Sunnah, even amongst non-Muslims. But at least what I would like to know is, why did our dear Prophet, peace be upon him, believe he could be an appropriate and just and skilled leader to run the affairs of society? I mean, I think that is the fundamental question. And that is why I thought, well, how did Imam alayhi salam deal with people's problems? How did he make fair judgments in society that whether it is a man or a woman or a non-Muslim, everybody knew that my rights could be guaranteed in front of this person that we call Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam? Why was he trusted to that degree? I mean, at the end of the day, it's not about your oratory. Yes, Imam Ali gave beautiful sermons, and mashallah, he had lots of knowledge. At the end of the day, if you're going to be a leader, then, jazakallah, you have to be able to know that you can go to that person and you will be in a better state than before. And so the focus of this majlis is in two parts. Salawat, please. Is to look at some verses of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purposefully created people in groups so we could recognize each other. And the second is, when these different groups come together, men, women, foreigners and tribes, how is it that when problems emerge, our communities and our societies can create a better system of justice for all? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran in many places, very similar words. It says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu qawamin Allahi shuhada'i bil qist. O you have faith, be maintainers as witnesses for the sake of Allah for justice. Don't allow ill feeling for people to make you unfair. Always be fair. Why? i'dilu huwa aqrabu lit-taqwa, because being fair is near to God consciousness. And further, have consciousness of Allah, for Allah is aware of what you do. Now, we are always commanded to be just, always commanded to be fair, always told we have to enjoin that which is good and prohibit that which is detestable and ugly. Muharram is coming. We again are going to mourn for the martyrdom of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And it is one thing to mourn and another thing to put his values into practice. And here let me pose you a question. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Hujurat verse 13, a very famous verse, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuhan nasu, okay? Inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha وَجَعَلْنَاكُم مِّن شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. Okay? إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ خَبِيرٌ. Okay? It's a verse which you have all heard of. Allah says, O people, indeed, okay, we created you from male and female. And then from that creation, we made you into nations and tribes so that you can recognize each other, okay? Indeed, the most noblest in front of you in the sight of Allah are those that have the most God conscious, who are pious, who are aware of their duties to Allah. Indeed, Allah is all aware and all knowing. Now, when I looked at the tafsir of this verse, I looked at Tafsir al-Safi, and Allama Faid al-Kashani quotes Majma al-Bayan and Tafsir al-Qummi. There is something very interesting coming out of this verse and why we may think we have problems in society. The reason or the asbabun nuzul of this verse was the following. The Prophet, peace be upon him, had just become victorious in Makkah. Okay? So the Quraysh's army had become very small. People were now coming to Islam in flocks. Now, when this Islam, if you like, was declared, the Arabs who had become Muslims said, Alhamdulillah, this Islam has come to us. We are Arabs. The Quran was revealed in Arabic. We can speak Arabic. We can recite the Adhan. And we are the correct people and flag bearers of this Islam. So then suddenly when Bilal came into the fold and recited Adhan, and when you have somebody like Salman al-Farsi, the Persian, who converted from different faiths, from Judaism, Christianity to Islam, some of the Arabs used to say, well, how come Bilal and Salman Farsi have this very high position amongst you, O Prophet? Why should they have such a position? And this verse was revealed to teach them that Allah created you as male and female, but purposefully, ja'alna, He made you, then from that purposefully made you into shu'uban and qaba'il. Now, shu'ub is nations, but the root meaning of this is foreigners. These nations were different to the qaba'il, the tribes. Arab society at that time was a tribal society. So Arabs, what they knew was tribes. They were not necessarily used to foreigners. Yes, people used to come in for trade, but there was a hierarchy in the Arab society. There was elitism there. Okay? And so when they questioned this verse, the Prophet said, Allah purposefully created foreigners. So they would come into your society, so you could learn from them, lita'arufu, you could recognize them. You could see that somebody like Bilal or Salman Farsi or Bilal could not pronounce certain Arabic letters, that somebody like him had a greater piety than you. So what if the Quran is revealed in Arabic? In fact, in the tafsir and in a hadith from Al-Kafi, the Prophet says, this is just your speaking tongue. Doesn't mean anything at all. What Allah is looking for is the next thing. The most noblest in the sight of Allah are those who are conscious of God. They feel God's presence. They feel like doing good. They feel like upholding their duty to Allah and the rest of their creation. Some Arabs at that time, not generalizing, may not have done their duties to orphans. But Bilal did, Salman Farsi did, and others did. So this verse is very beautiful, saying that Allah purposefully created different people, like we have today in this center, different cultures, different groups. So I learn from you and you learn from me. So we become a more God-conscious and just society. Salawat, please. Now, you can imagine that if Allah is creating the society in this way, there are bound to be problems. There will be racism. People won't always accept new people. And not only that, there may be friction between people, tribal warfare, killing, etc. And so in Islam, although we have the concept of the foreigner, okay, that yes, there are different identities. Okay, my roots are India, your roots may be Iraq or Irani or Pakistani or whatever it is. But once you accept Islam, you no longer become a foreigner. There's no such thing as a foreigner. You say La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, you start your journey to search for Allah. There's no such thing as a foreigner in Islam, actually. You're all, it's like, as we just celebrated Eid al-Hajj, we're all going around the Kaaba, all of us. And to be honest, we should extend that in our societies. Whatever colors we are, we will die with two cloths to our name, and that's it. Wealth, wherever it will go, but we will carry our deeds. So this is the beautiful universality of Islam that still needs to be brought out. So when it comes to this title that I chose, this transparent justice of Imam Ali, how was Imam Ali able to satisfy everybody? Satisfy the Persian and satisfy the Ethiopian, satisfy the male and the female, satisfy the orphan and widow. How was he able to do this? To the extent that in the biographies that I read, when Imam alayhi salam was struck in Mashhad al-Kufa, it wasn't just the Muslims crying. It is reported that the Christian and Jewish orphans and widows were crying in Mashhad al-Kufa. With tears, they said, "Where is our father? Who is going to give us our rights? Who's going to look after us now that Imam Ali has gone? Who?" They were crying. That means that this Imam that we call our Imam was just as much their Imam. It was their Ali that they lost. So Imam Ali's justice was something that reached all groups in the society. At the same time, it's not just about being just. It's about being seen to be just. You have to show that you are just. In one story, and this is at the time of the Khilafah of Imam Ali alayhi salam, his companion Harun ibn Hamza comes to him and he sees Imam Ali working away within his palace confines, within whatever work he's doing. And he sees Imam Ali shivering. So he goes to Imam Ali and he says, "I keep watching you and I can't stand the fact that you're always shivering. I just can't stand it. Look, this Baytul Mal that you are using for the public, a portion has also been granted to you. So why don't you take a bit of money out of there, buy yourself an extra piece of garment and for your children so that you don't shiver while you work for us?" Imam Ali's response was a very simple one. "I dislike and hate to take out of the Baytul Mal, this public treasury, because this money is for the public. And when a poor person is shivering and I am working, how can I be in a state of comfort?" So the other reason why people trusted Imam Ali wasn't just because he is successor of Rasulullah. I mean, that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, people have to see this person that Imam Ali chose, is he living up to his name? And yes, because he is going around with those simple garments, not elevating his status above poor people. In fact, a similar incident is recorded in Nahj al-Balagha in one of the letters. One of his governors goes to a very rich banquet, and Imam Ali is surprised that he's going to a rich banquet where the leaders of this banquet don't feed the poor people. And so Imam Ali writes him a letter and says, "I am so surprised that you are going to this banquet. Now, you've gone and I accept your decision." But then he advises him how to eat, how to sit, where should he give the money to, how he should conduct himself, etc., etc. So it's not that Imam Ali is saying that something is haram. Sometimes we have this attitude, don't eat at a, restaurant, nice restaurant. Well, it depends what the occasion is and where the money is going and what the niyat is. But how we conduct ourselves within that restaurant and how we conduct ourselves outside of that restaurant as well. Salawat. Now, that was my Eid Gadir Majlis to satisfy the stories. It's a joke, no. I mean that because it's very beautiful to talk about Imam alayhi salam. But it doesn't satisfy me at all. Because at the end of the day, why aren't we? This is the question I always pose. The letters in Nahj al-Balagha, And some of the principles in his hadith give us food for thought about improving the way we treat our women, our children, the way that we follow our fiqh rules, the problems we may experience. All of these principles are there, but how do we extract these beautiful stories and elevation of Imam Ali to something practical that we can implement in our life, okay? And I want to share with you 2 case studies to make this clear. Please tell me if it's not clear, because I realize I'm going to a bit of academic territory, but I'm making it simple. And these case studies are based on real life, okay? Now, in one case study, a husband and a wife are going through divorce, all right? Okay, going through divorce. Now, they try to reconcile, but it has become very, very bitter, right? And so what is happening is that both sides are accusing each other of something. Now, let me give you some real life facts, which you may have seen and observed as well, all right? The wife, okay, is complaining against the husband, right, for not fulfilling his responsibilities to the family. Now, within fiqh, it is traditionally the man's responsibility, the husband's responsibility, to give nafaqah to the women and the children in the house. Nafaqah is financial maintenance of the wife and the household, right? So the wife is complaining, you're not providing for us. And is putting pressure on me, although I'm working, but you are not providing for us. That is one complaint from the wife. The husband is complaining, saying, my wife is nushuz. Now, nushuz is a term traditionally in fiqh, which means a disobedient or hostile wife, right? Like when the husband and wife argue, wife becomes hostile and throws things. No, so don't worry. And the husband can throw things as well, all right? But the husband is complaining that my wife left my house without my permission. Now, I'm calling her nushuz. She's being disobedient to me. She's being hostile to me, all right? These are complaints. So they both go to a sheikh and say, look, can you please help us resolve the problem? Now, unfortunately, the wife is not represented because the man got his 2 male witnesses to oversee the divorce procedure. You need 2 male just witnesses. The wife, poor thing, doesn't have a representation. This is quite common, all right? Some of you are nodding, or hopefully you're agreeing with me. This is quite a common thing. The wife doesn't have representation. So she leaves. She says, I can't deal with this. My rights are not being given to me, okay? Now the husband becomes very clever. And he knows the sheikh, because sheikhs are generally male, okay? Says, I know the sheikh. These 2 male witnesses will support me, and I'm going to get a divorce. Because, why? Within fiqh, the husband doesn't need anybody's consent. He has a right to divorce the woman. But the wife needs the husband's consent for divorce, for example. Why? Because if she is able to give back part of her mahar, or all of her mahar, known as the khul divorce, and the husband consents to it, then she can divorce. So the wife becomes very tired and says, you know, you want this divorce? Fine. I'm going to give you back my mahar. So the husband says, it's not enough for me. And the husband can do this, by the way. He says, I want more, okay, because I just want more, I want to get on with my life, and I want that deposit or whatever to carry on with my life. And the husband does have a right within fiqh to ask for more in certain areas, all right? So the wife becomes very despondent and very distressed and says, look, I'm giving you my mahar, it's not enough for you. And the husband becomes even cleverer and says, look, I just don't want to give you a normal talaq. Please make sure you give me this mahar. So why? You've been disobedient to me, but I'm going to also take the mahar, the money, and then go away. Now, there's a further problem. They don't resolve this. The husband leaves the country, and the wife is left there in the house with 2 children. So the wife doesn't know what to do. She can't contact the husband. The nafaqah is not coming. There's no maintenance coming into the household. There's nobody to observe, well, who's going to make sure that the nafaqah and maintenance is coming to the wife. There's nobody there to represent the wife. And so the wife says that the husband is psychologically abusing me. And the husband is saying the same thing, right? Now, I've given you this scenario, and this case is still ongoing, right? The particular couple is, I'm not saying it's a case is based on real life facts, but I've made it into a case because they're common problems, okay? The case is still not resolved, right? Now, the reason I'm sharing this with you is I'm respecting the fiqh and the fatawa of our respected ulama. I'm not going into that. That is a very ijtihadi discussion. I'm sharing this with you because who is going to monitor when a husband or a wife, and I'm being fair here, abuse and exploit the rules of our fiqh? Who monitors that? Okay, we say that a husband gives nafaka to the wife. Okay, who's going to really monitor that? Is there police there that's going to say, okay, you're giving £500, £1,000 a month? Is there anybody that's going to monitor that? Who's going to monitor when the husband leaves the country and the wife and the 2 children are left alone? Number 3, the husband is complaining of nushuz, that the wife is being disobedient and being hostile to him. What happens if the husband does the same? Now, in traditional fiqh, that's not recognized by the husband. If the husband does something and abuses the wife, yes, we have verses that deal with this, but there's no term which says that the husband is being nushuz. So when the wife goes to the sheikh and says, look, my husband is doing this to me, the sheikh will follow the fiqh and say, okay, that's fine, he may be doing this to you, but there's no term to describe this, right? What about psychological abuse? Now, that's not recognized at the moment. So if husband is sending some very terrible WhatsApp messages or acting in a way in the community but then doing something else behind closed doors, it's psychological abuse, but that's not recognized. Now, I'm not criticizing the fiqh rules. What I want to deliberate on is within our fiqh, what procedure is there to make sure people don't exploit the fiqh rules? Just because they know a sheikh or they know 2 witnesses and they don't give the rights to the wife, at least the wife deserves a wakil, who's going to monitor that? So keep that in your mind, that within our society, within our communities, it's not just about making laws, that is one thing. It's also about making sure that we are implementing the laws in a just manner so people's rights are upheld. Salawat. Have I been clear? Please, could you just tell me? Are you sure? Okay, because I kept going this in my mind, making me more depressed about life, but hopefully it's clear now. Second example I'm giving you. That was 2 people disputing with each other. Let's just talk about us as individuals. We may be a muqallid of a respected mujtahid, okay? Now, let's take a fatwa, a normal fatwa, which is used in usul al-fiqh, all right? If you are capable, if you have istita'a, capability, then Hajj becomes wajib upon you. Everybody knows that. Then Hajj becomes obligatory upon you. Now, usually, we take capability to mean that if, for example, I have the financial means, I've paid off my debts and I'm healthy, then Hajj becomes obligatory upon me. That is the basic rule, right? That's fine. But what happens if we don't understand the fatwa or we can't implement it properly? Now, let me give you an example. Few years ago, I believe, there was full of stampede in Hajj and people got crushed, right? Now, the fatwa might be there, but what happens if you have other risk factors which we don't know what to do? That if I go to Hajj, I might be crushed. Should I still go or not? Number 2, Shias, Chadians. Chadians are a particular group in Saudi Arabia. In my work, I deal with a number of asylum seekers. They're coming from Saudi Arabia. Or women, for example, their iqama, their residence can be revoked very easily, right? If groups are being discriminated by a so-called Muslim state, should we still go to Hajj and support the state? Yes or no? Now, there's no answer to this, but I'm just making you think, right? If people are being executed, like Sheikh Nimr, rahimullahi alayh, should we still go and do our Hajj? Or should we be protesting? See that? Now, it's one thing to issue a fatwa. It's one thing. It's another thing to implement it and understand it. Maybe in our circumstance, istita'a, capability, means something a bit broader. Maybe we might not be capable of going. Maybe we might be crushed. maybe there might be other risk factors involved which trump the fact that I am financially well off and I should just go for Hajj. Maybe there are other considerations which need to be taken into account. So what is the problem that is happening here? In both cases, whether it's two people disputing like a divorce or in a partnership, shirka, or in a company, whether it is you and I following a fatwa, my focus in this lecture is that within our fiqh, within Islam, we don't have a just procedure, a just system that makes sure that we're giving rights to everybody and that we are understanding and implementing a fatwa in a just manner. This is something that's a big hole. There is nothing there that's telling us who's going to safeguard these things. And so now I want to go back to Imam Ali. How did Imam Ali tackle these things? And I'll just read a few lines from Nahj al-Balagha before proposing humbly a solution to this, okay? In Nahj al-Balagha, look how Imam Ali talks about justice, letter 53. This is how our great master talks about running a society. He says, "Let the most beloved of affairs to you be those centered upon the right. The most comprehensive in justice. Justice is something total, right? And the most inclusive of people's satisfaction. People have to be happy, right? So what if it says that a husband has to give nafaka? Who's going to observe that? The wife has to be happy. A poor person has to be happy. Who's going to make sure about that, right? Not only that, remember that the pillar of religion is to make sure that Muslims are cohesive and always dispose yourself to them and incline to them. People's needs are most important. Husband or wife, orphan or widow, their needs are most important in the society. And how we administer their affairs are most important. That is the goal of justice. If we are not meeting that criteria, we are not a just community, at least according to Imam Ali. A second example, he says that don't break any beneficial traditions from the past. If something has worked before, continue it. But then he says, sit with the hukama, sit with the ulama, sit with wise people and scholars, learn from them and build and consolidate from before. So what does that mean? We can't remain in the past. Maybe some rules worked or the way that justice was administered. Maybe now it doesn't work. So he says, sit with people, learn and consolidate and do something better. Point number 3. He says, pay particular attention to the lowest class, those who have no means, who are destitute, who are needy, who are afflicted and disabled. Within this class, there are people who beg, and those who calls out, but people don't hear them. Be mindful of God in regard to their rights, for remember, God has entrusted their rights in your care. Look at the emotion that he's speaking with. There are people who are begging. There are people who have no means. Who is going to look after them? Who? How many divorce cases we have? How many people who are poor in the community all around the world? What is happening in Kashmir? Is it our problem? Isn't our problem? We are far away, so we get on with our life. Do our hearts become hard and we don't hear the plea of the orphan and the widow? Imam Ali's heart was always close to the common people, always. He was never aloof from them. And are our leaders like that? Do they give rights to people? Perhaps I've only met 1 or 2 leaders in my time, I have a short life so far, that would fulfill this kind of objective, okay? So look at the heart of Imam Ali towards common people. And the last one, which is very interesting, he tells Malik al-Ashtar, keep a part of your time for people who have very special needs and sit with them personally with humility in front of them and your Creator, and keep your soldiers, your guards and officers away from them so they can speak to you freely. Now, my humble theory from that is that we shouldn't always have big AGMs and big conferences and big meetings, because the common folk don't understand that language, right? Only rich people and very special people come to those meetings. Let's be very honest here, right? So what happens to the poor people? They say, oh, my mosque or my Jamaat or my society, my country is not meeting my rights. You think they're going to come in front of the president and vice president and these leaders and speak? No, they're not going to come. So who is going to listen to them? They'll only listen to a man they trust, a man that is humble and free from all his soldiers and guards. That is how we should conduct our meetings, to listen to people's problems, right? So, this is how Imam looks at justice. If you can keep these principles in your mind, I want to share with you in the last 5-10 minutes only some research I've been doing in the last 2 to 3 years about a possible solution to tackle some of these cases like divorce or people fighting, or maybe we don't understand some of our respected fatwa, etc. I want to provide some solution, okay? And it is a 3-part solution. Number 1 is that maybe we can create an internal court in our mosques and communities. And I'm especially talking about Muslims who have migrated across the world. I'm not talking about Muslim states, that is another issue, but Muslim diaspora around the world. If we create an internal court system inside our mosques, right? So it's not just a matter like a divorce, doesn't come to one shake, where rules could easily be abused. But you have something like a magistrate's court, where you can have a sheikh, you can have a non-Muslim lawyer, you could have somebody qualified in ijtihad or somebody that has appointed someone who knows rules. And in confidentiality, people come inside that court. A husband and wife come. And they don't just come and the matter is heard and we say, inshallah, something will be done, and the matter goes on for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. The children go through problems, okay? The case of the couple is recorded. It's written down. So before you know it, you have 50 cases of divorce or 50 cases of people having problems in a company. It's a case. Now, the parties' names remain confidential, all right? And the reason why you have this court system is so that you have neutral people, confidential people, people of integrity, people of different specialisms that are trying to solve the case. Number 1, it's not dependent upon one person and who you know. The wife is represented and the husband is represented. Number 2, if there needs to be other state machinery, like if there's abuse and these sorts of things, then such people can be called. Number 3 is so that we can prevent divorces in the community, so that we can prevent people fighting over all sorts of things, so we can prevent corruption. Maybe people have put money in a building project and corruption has resulted, right? We record the case, we understand it, and that is recorded. So next time a couple comes, next time a dispute comes, the people who are qualified, Muslim or non-Muslim, inside the mosque can say, wait, let us refer to case number 2. Now, in that case, there was psychological abuse. Maybe our fiqh should start recognizing it. So now look what's happening. We begin to understand our problems and our fiqh begins to change for the better, right? Oh, there were 2 male witnesses, but that guy called his friends. I think let's go and explore these connections more. Now, we don't think of these things, right? Let's try to make the process fairer. But we think, and this is my humble observation, I'm not saying I'm some counselor or expert, there are people better than me, is we want to brush everything under the rug. Oh, it's too sensitive. Let's not record this case. Let's just, we meet privately. Okay, fine, understand confidentiality. But if people's culture begin to change and say, look, we want an official resolution here. We don't want this problem to happen again. We don't want our kids to go through this. Then we begin to create this system, right? So the first is to create a sophisticated system. We have Sharia councils in the UK, but these are not courts. The media says they're courts, but they're not courts. They're just in informal committees, and there's a report done on this, dated February 2018, you can find on the internet. We still don't have a sophisticated court of what I'm suggesting. It doesn't exist. These Sharia councils are very informal things, and they have their own problems. So this is one part of the solution. If you look at Imam Ali's life, he was a qadi, he was a judge. Why can't we have judges? Why can't we have judges of integrity? judges who will keep things confidential. Why can't we do that? It is legitimate in our fiqh. Marhum Ayatullah Khoui, in one of his books, I have it here, he says that if you are to appoint a judge or create cases, this isn't just something religious. You don't need justification from Quran. It is shar'i and aqli. It is religious and aqli. It is not just specific to Islam. All religions should have a good judicial procedure. Why don't we have it inside our mosques? Why? I understand there are courts outside, but some of these courts don't understand what talaq is and what nikah is and what riba is and these sorts of things. We should be sophisticated in these things. Part number two. Number two is that when these cases are recorded, it is one thing to have them recorded. But what happens, as I gave the example of the Hajj case, where we don't understand a fatwa. Now, who is there to listen to our problems? And who is there to say, well, okay, I don't understand this fatwa. Should I go to Hajj? Should I not go to Hajj? The second use of this court is to make it an open court hearing. There should be people nominated who hear the problems we face when a respected fatwa conflicts with our life. Okay? Whatever it is, workplace issues, okay? Whether it is shaking hands of the opposite gender. Maybe there, and people often tell me there are a lot of conflicts that occur with that. Now, perhaps our respected mujtahid can be more aware, or we can be more aware of these issues. And what are the boundaries, etc., etc. So we express a grievance and say, okay, I'm having a problem with this fatwa. Or should I go to Hajj? Should I not go to Hajj? So we have an open fatwa court where we express everything. Let all our views be recorded so that we're in a better state than before and all of our problems can be understood. And the last thing is that if we are expressing our views, maybe instead of a fatwa, we have guidelines. You don't just have one line saying, for example, okay, this is what you have to do. Maybe you have 5 principles, 10 principles of how you should act. And if we can create such a structure, our respected non-Muslims can also see, oh, if a Muslim is undergoing a divorce problem, or there is a problem of inheritance, or there is a woman is having problem because of hijab, okay, and there is Islamophobia. Instead of dismissing Islamophobia, they can look at the cases we have recorded in our mosques and say, wait, the Muslims have already understood Islamophobia. Let's refer to the case from Mahfil Ali, where the judge and a lawyer sat there. Islamophobia was defined, talaq was defined. Now we should use this in court and we should take Islamophobia seriously. You see that? We should make a bridge with the national court system. This is in very simplistic terms, so you don't have to read any boring papers that I write. In very simplistic terms, this is my humble proposal to increase justice within our society and according to the beautiful spirit of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Salawat. I will end on a few lines. Conclusion. Whatever I have suggested comes from the principles of Nahj al-Balagha, comes from our istidlal within fiqh, especially Kitabul Qada, the book of legal judgment, and some of the thoughts of Marhum Ayatullah Khoui. Okay? And what I am saying here, okay, I've been very respectful with the fiqh, but I'm just tackling how the spirit of Imam Ali, whether on his wiladat, whether in terms of Ghadir, is not a spirit that is dead, is not a spirit that we just celebrate for one night, but his teachings continue and reverberate for all of us, inshallah. Salawat. Please can we end with a Surah Al-Fatiha? Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, we have some time for questions if there are any.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Thank you very much for a very, very enlightening lecture. In this court system idea is very interesting, but how would you hold people to judgments? Because if someone gets a judgment they're not happy with, they can just say, well, I don't recognize, I'm going to go to another court system and get something I'm more happy with. So how would you prevent that?
Okay, Jazakallah, very good question. Well, as you know, within English law, there's a hierarchy, right? And judgments are final unless the preceding court allows it to go to the upper court, like magistrates, high court, court of appeal, and then Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court judgment is final. So it's very easy to implement such a hierarchy within our centers, where you can have a kind of mini court, and then if there is still a dispute, like you say, and there's a right of appeal, it can go to a higher court. Why not? And better specialists maybe can sit, and then the judgment is final and can be enforced. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Both parties must agree to that submission in the first place. So it's not like you drag one part to come to the court.
Yes, yes.
This is a consensual process. Yeah.
No, it is. I agree. The parties must consent, you mean, to the whole court procedure. Yes, and this is about changing our mindset and culture to resolve our disputes in a more efficient way. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you very much indeed. Truly inspiring. I could see that your proposition around, instead of having a fatwa, but having guidelines to enable people to work out for themselves, specialists.
Yes.
I could see that that will take us quite a quantum leap forward. But our respected mujtahids and marjas have come through generations of ways of being.
Yes.
The way they train, the way they, they conduct their lives, which means for them to get from a state of knowing how to look at the evidence and issue a fatwa, to look at the evidence and issue a set of guidelines, it's quite a journey. How would you propose that? Where would you start? How long do you think that might take?
Yes, Jazakallah.
I'm really interested.
Yes. Marhum Bakr Sadr and other scholars did try to suggest a different approach of how scholars give guidance. So, as you may be aware, he wanted to create a council of ulama, not just one. We do have writings within our fiqh where at least over a century ago people did suggest things, definitely. Okay. However, these have not been implemented, right? There are initiatives, okay, here and other places where this kind of more collective ijtihad, and Al-Mahdi Institute is an example, and many others, where, a different approach may be started. So I agree with you, it is a bit of a quantum leap. But I also feel that based on the complexity of our problems and migration, I don't think we have a choice except to broaden the approach, broaden our specialisms, which is all legitimate within fiqh. And I think it's a natural evolution, and it's an evolution we should welcome. Imam Ali welcomes it. As he says in Nahj al-Balagha, sit with all the scholars, try to have a kind of a council. And I think that we should have confidence. I agree, it'll take time and people will disagree and all that, but I feel we should do it, inshallah. Yes, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Excellent lecture. Thank you so much. I know this is out of context, but I always wonder, in some families, some people do the tilawat of Ayatollah Hui, some do it of Ayatollah Shistani, and there's always conflict. Now, Ayatollah Hui has died long time ago. How can people do his taqleed? When, new things are evolving all the time, how they do his taqleed all the time?
Okay, Jazakallah for your question. I think the reasoning is that people regarded him as a very high caliber scholar. And there is opinion amongst some ulama that even taqleed of a dead mujtahid, at least in matters which are not new, can be done. There is an opinion there, because he was so respected and of a high caliber. It's like, for example, people following the theory of Einstein, okay? Or following somebody's theory for a very long time. Even if he's passed away, we still follow the ideas of people from the past. So it's not wrong as such. You're right that a conflict can come when there is a new issue and there's nobody there to give a guidance because the person has passed away. So you're right that we should have the safeguards and opportunities and options where in this particular situation, people can refer to Mujtahid X and Y. And we do have some leeway within our fiqh to do that, like in ihtiyat issues and mustab issues, you can go to another Mujtahid as well. So it's not a big conflict, but I think the conflict emerges when we don't educate people that, look, for example, on an Eid issue or on an ihtiyat or mustab issue, you can go to another mujtahid and he can give you an answer. So I think it is partly to do with the way our system works. There's an issue there, but it is also about the way we educate each other. I don't think we have to be so rigid. Our respected mujtahideen are not rigid like that. They give you free choice and you can change as well, if that answers something. It's a deep, I don't want to go completely off topic. I'm just giving you a kind of understanding that there are options that we can use to tell people, okay, go to another mujtahid. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much for this interesting lecture. In fact, I would like to ask you, and this is a question maybe many people they are asking themselves. In the British court, they don't follow the contract of the Muslim marriage, i.e., I mean, we are hearing many women, in fact, Muslim women, unfortunately, they married according to the Muslim law, but when a divorce came to power, they prefer it because more advantage to them. So the question, why the court or the hierarchy of the British hasn't been informed, or there is a liaison with them that, look, this is our rules, this is our principle, our contract in the marriage, and when in divorce happen, it should be according to our contract, not according to the British law.
Yes. Jazakallah, brother. I agree with you. And there is a report on this if you want to read it. It's called Sharia Councils in the UK, dated February 2018. It is online. And this exact issue comes. And the current recommendation from some of the Muslim parliamentarians and others is exactly this should happen currently. So this recommendation is there that when we do a nikah, that should be immediately recognized by law. And the reason why we haven't is two problems. One is we have not been organized to suggest this previously, but now it appears we are. And two, British courts, to be very honest, have not fully understood some of our fiqh laws. Now it appears there is some understanding, which is why I'm suggesting the solution, to bring the two types of systems close together. So it was our fault, our responsibility, but also British courts did not, I would say, treat us like our fellow Christian and Jewish brothers, where this does occur, by the way. So it is a problem in both ends, but currently, from what I'm aware, this recommendation has been suggested. Yeah.
We'll take one final question if there is one. Anyone on the ladies' side?
The example you gave of the divorce case, and you said the man was misusing the law. I don't believe that he was misusing the law. He actually was following the law. The problem is in our fiqh law, there are many, they are the unjust laws we have, especially like the one you gave against women. So the issue, and even your recommendations, the underlying problem actually is about our own fiqh, which are many of the laws are unjust. That is the issue that we have to tackle. Because you can do anything you want, but if the fiqh law still stays, you will not be able to succeed.
I agree, I mean, Ahmad Bhai, that what you're saying is these underlying problems, but I specifically avoided that discussion because, all of you looking at me now, I avoided that discussion, but thank you anyway, just spoiled last fifth now. I avoided that discussion because it's a very ijtihadi discussion, right? And I think you require a series of lectures to analyze the reasons behind why these laws are there, and then the reforms and this. So I agree with you that fundamentally we must re-examine our laws, yes. But what I'm suggesting can also be looked at a different way. Is I'm coming from outside in, put it that way, which I still think is also legitimate, because that puts pressure and forces scholars, forces leaders to then say, okay, this psychological abuse is a huge thing. And making noise like that can also work as well. Sometimes if you can't get far in the theory, you can combine theory and practice and still set up this thing, and it can work. So I'm coming from that way to answer your question. Yeah?
Inshallah, Imranali can come and deliver a large series of talks looking at this in the future. But for now, I think we'll end there. Muhammad wa ala Muhammad salawat.